right. So we got the third track on NF's album, Therapy Session. This one is I Just Want to Know. So we did.
So is Therapy Session like his first album?
No, I believe it's Mansion. I'm not entirely sure. He has quite a few albums. I think it's Mansion. He has another album. I think it's called Perception. His newest is The Search. So yeah, no, not this first. So we did Intro 2, which was the first track. We did Therapy Session, which was the second track. And now it's NF, I Just Want to Know. What do you think about NF so far?
He seems to be very vocal about how he feels. And I have so much respect for him because at the end of the day, like, he's doing it just for himself. Yeah. And even though he's getting like so much hate apparently, I'm surprised. Cause like, how can you hate on someone that's being genuine?
Yeah.
It's funny. Hard to hate that.
It's interesting. And I think people that are really vocal with how they feel get demonized the most. And I don't know, for some reason I think about like 3 rappers and they all happen to be white, which is kind of funny. Like NF, you got Tom McDonald, extremely fucking vocal. Tom McDonald just says whatever the fuck he wants to say. And then you have M, which I feel like is one of the first. You actually had a huge group was NWA. I don't know if you remember NWA with Eazy-E, Ice Cube. I never
grew up with them, listening to them.
Like you had Dre, like they were I feel like they were one of the first that I've listened to that were extremely vocal. I mean, obviously you have the Tupac and the Biggie. So any artist that's really like out there, I think of them because they were very fucking rebellious. Like especially Tupac. Tupac was extremely fucking like anti-government, rebellious. I mean, I don't know if you know much about his story. I'm not gonna delve too deep into it, but like I think his mom was involved in the Black Panther movement, if I remember right. So Tupac came from that.
It makes sense because when I think of Tupac, I think of a very educated man.
Yes, he was very ahead of his time. The one thing I noticed about Tupac, he was extremely ahead of his time. Like literally a rap version of like a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King, just in a musical version.
I like that analogy because like speaking of demonized, he was demonized because of his lifestyle. His lifestyle was like the rap scene, like being with so many different types of women. But if you listen to like his songs, it's very deep.
He was actually very big on unifying.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he was a target. He was very big on unifying and, you know, obviously like
fighting.
Right.
Which is huge.
Right. So if you're a rebel and on top of that, you're able to have such an influence where everyone can actually follow you and kind of like unify because of you, like you become a very powerful figure.
And the government does not like that.
They hate that.
So like speaking of Tupac, like when I think of Tupac, I actually think of a very positive person because automatically I think of his song Dear Mama. I think about changes. I think about staring at my something rear view. I love that song.
Yeah.
He's a thinker, and I think it had a lot to do with like the amount of books that he read.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't look at artists as like positive or negative. I don't think it's that binary where you can place an artist under good or bad or positive and negative. But it's easy to classify them, but like you think of like even Eminem. Like a lot of people, depending on who you are and how you look at things, you can look at Eminem as someone that is potentially a negative person. But to some, he can be looked at as very positive because he's vocal. And I think depending on what you're vocalizing is, you know, you're gonna, it's very easy to offend one group because there's so many different perspectives out there. Yeah. You know, so it's easy, like someone's gonna get offended.
That's why it's objective. That's why like when I think of Tupac, I think of a very positive person, despite like what someone else might think of where they might think he's a very violent person, which equals to negative.
Right. So let's get to
enough.
I just want to know.
Yeah, only time you ever call me is when you feeling like don't nobody else wanna listen. When's the last time you saw me? You probably don't remember that, cause that was back when you were different. I don't wanna hear the sorries. I'm tired of all the talking, to be honest. I would rather see it different. Yeah, you passed me in the hallway, but you ain't said a word to me. Lately all I ever feel is distant. You don't care that you lost me. What's wrong with you? Had a picture of you sitting on the dash in the car with me.
The one thing I have to point out with NF, he doesn't need any fucking gimmicks to sell music or to make music. Like, I noticed right away, I've never seen him behind the fucking mansion. You'll never see in a music video a fucking Ferrari or a Lambo or loads of fucking cash or video vixens. He doesn't use any of that shit. He
That's
doesn't
very
use
true.
any fucking antics whatsoever.
And I think that's what separates him from a lot of other people that he has to compete with.
Right.
Because he's just, I don't want to say plain, but perfect word. He's substantial enough that he doesn't need anything
Yeah.
besides his music.
Yeah, nah, his music has substance, you know? So like
Yeah, it does.
So with NF, I like that. I feel like it's a way where it's like, I don't need this to compete. I don't need to have all this extra. And I consider it antics because I think that's what it is. Because if your music's trash, you kind of need something, whether like your lyrics are trash, so you need a really good beat, maybe throw in some video vixens, some cars, something that kind of distract people from the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything lyrically.
Yeah.
So since he has something so lyrical and meaningful, he doesn't even want to distract the viewer from all this extra shit. Just the actual movie scene that he's trying to shoot and his music.
I also think that that's why so many people can relate to him, because he just looks like a very normal dude.
Yeah, he is. He's
Just
very
expressing
normal.
how he feels.
Like, the dude is driving a fucking Impala. That's the first thing I thought about. Like, yo, out of all the, like, he could have had any car he wanted, you know?
Yeah.
He has an Impala for this shoot. Like, anyone could be driving that garbage.
Yeah. The one where like you still gotta roll the windows down.
Right.
That you lost me. What's wrong with you? Had a picture of you sitting on the dash in the car with me. Now it's in my closet with the other one sitting in the box. I don't wanna open up. You took it off from me. Told me you would die for me. Yeah. All you ever do is lie to me. Wish that I could say that this is coming as a surprise to me. Tell me that I never took the time and now you ain't got the time for me. Yeah. When did you get so cold? What happened to your soul? Don't you see me? Yeah. We used to talk like best friends. I remember that. I guess I don't know what happened to us. Now you got me questioning what trust is. You told me you would be there for me, yeah, but you ain't really mean it, did you? Now you wanna jump ship. Leave me here alone while I'm used to it. Everybody else did. Who you having fun?
Yo. So, like, the way I interpret this, and he's dope with the way he, like, puts his emotions and feelings into words and creates music from it. Like, just the way he paints that picture of, like, feeling betrayed and feeling left and not being able to trust anymore. So I think that's something anyone can relate to, and I think that's why he's so substantial as an artist, because anybody, any age group, any race can listen to an NF song and relate to something.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me you can't relate to these topics. Like,
Yeah.
everyone can, like, relate to be like drifting away from a friend, for instance, or drifting away where he talks about, you know, we used to be best friends. Like, what happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you get so cold?
Yeah.
You know, so I like his views and the way he expresses his views.
I also like this scene about like the Impala, right? I think it's very significant because to me, the car itself represents this relationship that he has with this person that he's talking about. Literally his ride or die. And literally looks like she's dead.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, he's in a literal sense, ride or die.
Yeah.
I like that.
Jump ship. Leave me here alone while I'm used to it. Everybody else did. Who you having fun with? Don't tell me I don't wanna know. Every time I ask, I just feel sick. You're the one that jumped in. Told me you had feelings. Now you trying to tell me that it's not true. I ain't got a clue who I'm looking at right now, but I know the person that I'm looking at is not you. Yeah, they say you are who you hang with. Maybe that's the reason you've been changing.
And like even the scene where like he looks so physically drained, so physically beat up, like in the video, like when you just hear the song without the video, I think of like being more emotionally drained, mentally drained. But the way he's able to put that into a video where it's actually he's visually drained and
Yeah.
visually beat up, but really it's all mental. But he's like speaking literally but also figuratively as well.
Yeah, and that, like, this is kind of off topic, but that's why, like, abuse in any shape or form has to be taken seriously, whether it's like physical, sexual, or verbal. Like, I think in the past, we often think about how, like, physical abuse, for instance, plays a more important role than, let's say, verbal abuse, because it's more impactful in a physical sense. But if you think about it, like, mental and like verbal abuse, it's more traumatic, because I think our brains don't have the ability to heal as quickly as like a physical accident, for instance. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it makes me think about like the whole like physical part of this relationship going to shit, but it's actually more mental than anything.
But no, you made a great point. I think what it is because it's visual, because it can be seen. It's easier to empathize with something that can be seen. Because if you can't see it, it's much harder to empathize with something you can't see. So I
Unless
think
you've been through it.
right. So when you think of someone that's physically abused, you can right away just by looking at it, without even having to know the background story, by looking at it, it's easy to feel bad. You're just like, oh my God, what happened? Versus someone that's internally fucked up, you don't really know. So it's harder to empathize. You can sense there's something wrong, but you don't really fucking know.
Yeah.
Typically in my experience, at least, like the inner pain is a lot harder to overcome than
Because it's
physical
easier
pain.
to mask.
Yeah. But yeah, NF is fucked up.
And you know what it is? Like, he's also so, like, he says it in such a simplistic way that, like, the meaning itself is so, it's so powerful, because nothing is hidden. Like, there's no, like, behind meaning, really. It is what it is.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
talking about a relationship that, like, obviously changed.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what the fuck? What happened?
That is not you. Yeah, they say you are who you hang with. Maybe that's the reason you've been changing. Maybe that's the reason why I'm feeling like you're dangerous. And every time we talk, it's like I'm talking to a stranger. When did you get so cold? What happened to your soul? Don't you see me? I thought that we were close, but now that door is closed. When did we lose control?
But yeah, I like that saying so much, where it's like, where he says, we were so close and now that door is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, anyone can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's so fucking relatable.
You know what's interesting? Like, this whole scene about her dying and him pulling her out, it makes me think about this saying that often comes up where people say, "You're dead to me," which sometimes is said so that people can move on from each other. Like, it's almost easier to kind of pretend someone's dead.
Yeah.
You ever, like, experience that or hear that?
Yeah.
So I think with this scene, it's almost like he has to pretend she's dead to kind of move on from her.
Yeah. Like, I mean, whatever you have to do to get that door closed, you have to do, right? Like for me, I wouldn't be as dramatic and say like, oh, this person is dead to me. But like, you have to hang on to something that helps you keep that door closed. Because if you even have the slightest weakness to letting somebody back into your life, it can be difficult to keep that door closed permanently. So maybe in that sense, you're absolutely right. Where he's just like, yo, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's trying to paint that picture in this video,
Mm-hmm.
in a literal sense, which is great. But at the same time, like, he doesn't want to close that door, and I feel like I can sense that in the video where he's like, he's closing that door, but he really doesn't want to, or it's difficult for him to do it. That's why he's like hanging on to her dead, crying, but at the same time, I think he knows he has to move forward. And it's like such a cliche in relationships where it's like, you know what's best for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But actually doing it is a whole nother fucking story. Because
It
it's
is.
very easy to cling on to that because it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Versus moving on. It's a very painful experience. But then after you move on, you see like, I'm glad I did.
When did we lose control? Guess you don't need me. I just wanna know. When did you get so cold? What happened to your soul? Don't you see me? I thought that we were close, but now that door is closed. When did we lose control? Guess you don't need
Yeah, I really think that music video is very symbolic.
It definitely is.